There are a number of factors that have significantly increased the rate of breast cancer. Probably the largest increase in the United States has come from mammograms. Mammograms are x-rays. X-rays cause cancer, and these are fairly significant doses of x-rays to a woman's breast. Now, at the same time that they're giving x-rays, they're crushing the tissue. Damaged tissue is more susceptible to x-ray damage than non-damaged tissue. And then they kept giving the mammograms to younger and younger women, and younger breast tissue is more susceptible to x-ray damage than older. So it was just a perfect storm of ugliness, of cancer creating phenomena with the mammograms that they created. More and more mammograms pushing women to get them. We know that they cause breast cancer. We've known since 2000 when the Cochrane Center published their study showing that women that get mammograms die 4% more often than women that don't. Die, I'm not talking about get sick or have breast cancer, I'm talking about die. That's a huge number when it comes to death rate. So mammograms are a primary cause of breast cancer in the United States. Another major factor is the extreme overuse of antibiotics. Probably 95% of all antibiotics given in America today are unnecessary. Antibiotics are amazing drugs when you need them, when you have a life-threatening situation. Outside of that, they're very destructive. They kill off the microbiome in the bowel, which we live off of them. We're outnumbered by them, 10 to 1. So we're kind of a parasite on our bacteria. There's about 100 trillion of them, more or less. There's only about 10 trillion of our cells, more or less. So you give these antibiotics and kill off your good bacteria. The bad bacteria and the fungus, yeast, flourish in your bowel, and that's toxic soup. And so you're killing off these healthy bacteria with the antibiotics. The second thing that the antibiotics do that are really, really deleterious to your health is they kill off the power plants of the cells. You know, we don't have a central electricity. We run off of electricity. Our bodies are electric. We run off electricity. But we don't have a central organ that generates electricity and sends it out to the body. We have a central nervous system. It controls that. We have a central pumping system that pumps blood. We have a central detoxification system, but we don't have this organ that generates electricity. All electricity is generated locally inside the cells by little guys called mitochondria. And for all the world, they look just like a bacteria. Evolutionists would say that they're intracellular obligate bacteria. I don't think that's the way it happened. Creationism is much more probable from the scientific evidence and the geological evidence. But one way or the other, these little mitochondria have cell walls, they have their own DNA, they look just like bacteria, and they live inside of our cells. And they're where the electricity, the power plants are. Antibiotics kill those off. I think that's a major cause of chronic fatigue and situations like that. And it is a cause of cancer because as it kills off these energy power plants, the power goes down in the cell, and then the power the cell is not able to use its normal energy pathways. The Krebs cycle, it has to go to an alternate pathway called the Embden-Meyerhoff pathway, and that's the pathway that cancer cells use. And so as you get this power outage in the cells, because antibiotics have killed out the mitochondria, the alternate route starts being used, and that spells cancer. So there are a number of things that are currently causing the use of estrogens and drugs like Premen, birth control pills, caused a dramatic rise in breast cancer. They still cause it today if women use them. They're using a lot less of them, fortunately. Abortions were a primary cause of breast cancer. And that data has been so hidden. It's hardly out there and it's hard to find. But women that have an abortion, what it does is so the breasts are developing and they're just like blowing up, getting ready to nurse this child. And that process gets cut off in the right in the middle, and it's like a cliffhanger. And those cells are in full development, they just get suspended right there. And it's like, and much dramatically increased rate of breast cancer in those women who've had abortions. On the other hand, women who've breastfed before the age of 21, their rate goes down. So there are plenty of things that are causing breast cancer. You've got your other things, pesticides, chlorine, fluoride in the water, bromine. We've got a hypothyroid crisis in America because of the chlorine, fluoride, and bromine in our foods that knock off the iodine molecules and make the iodine inactive. So there's a lot of reasons that we have this just explosion of breast cancer. Yeah, to be a screening test, it needs to be about 80% sensitive. Mammograms are about 50, last number, it's all growing steady, 52% sensitive, so around half. It will detect, which means it misses half of all breast cancers in women under 50. That is not a screening device, number one. So it doesn't qualify as a screening device because it's missing half of what you're looking for. Number two, X-rays cause cancer. We've known that since X-rays were invented. Madame Curie died of cancer. Dr. Röntgen died of cancer. All of the early pioneers, and then they learned to protect themselves with lead. X-rays cause cancer just as effectively today as they did back in the day when they were discovered. So you're shooting serious doses of X-rays at the breast, and the younger the breast, the more susceptible, remember. So you're accumulating, and X-ray damage is cumulative. Every year, you get an additional mammogram. It's not let you get one and that's standalone. It's cumulative, the X-ray damage. So the more mammograms you get, the more likely you are to have breast cancer. And if you're under 50, it has only half a chance of even detecting it. And then the other problem with mammograms is it over detects things that aren't cancer. So that's called false positives. And then they're repeating the X-rays, so now you've got another huge dose of radiation. And then they want to biopsy you. And let's just talk, women over 60 are just virtually all going to have some ductal cancer cells present. Just like men over 50 are going to have, right here, right now, I'm sitting, there'll be some cancer cells in my prostate. Am I going to die of prostate cancer? No. Are those women, 99% of them with ductal carcinoma cells in their breast, going to die from that? No. Leave them right there. The immune system knows they're in there. They're surveying them. Everything's in harmony there. Then you go sticking a needle through it and rupturing that and knocking them out of where they're being surveyed, cutting across veins and lymphs, and then it's off to the races. That cell gets into a cut lymph that they cut with the needle, biopsying it, and it goes and lands in the liver or the bone or the lungs, and then you've got metastatic breast cancer. So, yeah, mammograms are not healthy for us. And it is interesting that you're going to use, it's even more interesting that they want to use something that causes cancer to treat it. So X-rays cause cancer. X-rays cause breast cancer. Mammograms cause breast cancer. If they said, we're going to give you an X-ray of the breast, women would be a little more aware. But we use this cute little fuzzy term, we're going to do a mammogram. Yeah, a breast X-ray with lots of X-rays. The effectiveness of early detection, let's just say that clearly that mammograms are not early detection. That's one of the many reasons that they don't increase survival rate at all. The initial studies that came out from the 2 counties and Twin Cities, they were lies. They statistically manipulated all the numbers. They double counted certain women that had done well. Women that hadn't done well, they didn't count them at all. So there was this amazing, like 31% increase in survival rate if you did mammograms, and that was just a lie. We now know that if you get mammograms, you're more likely to die 4% more likely to die. So it doesn't save any women. You'd have to image 2,000 women for 10 years to save one life with mammograms. In the meantime, you probably caused 30 or 40 cases of breast cancer over here, and maybe 10 or 15 of those died. So I'm not saying that no one has ever been, their life has been saved by getting a mammogram and finding a breast cancer, but on the other hand, for every one that's been saved over here, there's probably 10 or 20 that died over here and had their breast amputated, and their lives just, a destructo machine ran through their lives with all the biopsies, all the fear, all the amputations, all the drugs that they were given, the radiation causing congestive heart failure, making them die younger, and other cancers coming up from the radiation that they got from their lungs and bones, and the whole thing is devastating. Standard medical care has everything compartmentalized, and there is no compartment. Everything functions together. So it was interesting. My first medical degree was as an osteopath, and the philosophy was very different than the allopathic community, the MD community. First of all, we had to do a rotating internship, so we got a very broad exposure to the whole experience of medicine and how everything went out there. Whereas MDs were allowed to go straight into a residency, and so they didn't get this broad exposure. And then when I was working at MD institution versus DO, so at the MD institution, the training was like, well, this is what this is, and this is who you refer it to. They were referral specialists, and you see that today. And at the osteopathic institute, it was, well, this is what this is, and this is what you do, and this is how you treat it. So we learned to be physicians, not to be referral specialists. Our bodies are not compartmentalized, so when we're experiencing physiological stress, it dumbs down the immune system. You see, your body prioritizes. So you've got the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic system is the fight or flight. It's like survive right now. So when we get stressed, our body goes into fight or flight mode. The blood gets shunted from the forepart of the brain, which is our creative, thoughtful, arty, all of the creative stuff and the thinking stuff, to the center of the brain where you know how to run and climb and jump and escape and evade. Because who knows what's coming after you, the bear or the lion or the mastodon or whatever it is. I've been chased up a tree by a rhinoceros in Africa. I've been chased up a tree by a bear in Alaska. I've been run down by an elephant in the Congo. Anyway, Cape buffaloes, it's interesting. Yeah, the fight or flight really does kick in, and you can do a lot of amazing things when that juice gets flowing. So when all of that is happening, so think about it. What does the immune system need to be doing? Oh, killing a few bacteria over here, killing a virus over here, killing a fungus here, maybe killing a cancer cell over here. If you're being chased by a bear, does it matter if those bacteria or fungus are hanging out for a few minutes? No, not important. So the body's shunning all of its resources to survival, evasion, and escape at that moment. It's called fight or flight. So all of the energy is going to other things, not being artistically creative, not fighting this fungus over here or this bacteria over here, but living to fight another day. And so it shuts all of those systems down so that you can survive, skinny up that tree faster than the bear, run and get in the cave from whatever. So survival, escape, and evasion. And so when we're in continuous fight or flight, then it's always dumbing down the immune system. The neurological system's always communicating, saying, we don't need you out there right now. We need all of our energy resources over here. So that's how stress dumbs down the immune system. So if you have an abnormal mammogram, does that mean you have breast cancer? No, especially women under 50, more than half of those, probably upwards of like 80 or 90%, are what we'd call false positives. So they're saying that you might have a suspicious area. They get you back, they give you more cancer-causing x-rays, then they probably want a biopsy, and all of this trauma, all this fear, and 90% of those, no, you don't have. So it's called a false positive, and mammograms are famous for false positives. So just because you have a positive mammogram does not mean that you have breast cancer. So let's talk about estrogen effect. So birth control pills, Premarin, drugs like these that produce estrogen or estrogen-like things. And let's include xenoestrogens in there. And that's estrogen effect from plastics and chemicals. They all do the same thing. So the estrogen receptors on the cells of the breast are kind of a lock and key situation. So the estrogen is the key, and it comes and lands in the estrogen receptor and switches it on. And it can switch it on a lot or a little. Think of a rheostat light switch. So you can turn it on a lot or a little. So some estrogens turn it on just a little bit, some turn it on a lot. So the xenoestrogens really turn it on a lot. These equine estrogens that we give women in birth control pills, or artificial estrogens or Premarin, turn it on a lot. And that's why they're causing cancer, because they really switch it on to a high degree. So it's a lock and key sort of situation. The estrogen receptor on the cell, and it gets switched on by this estrogen or xenoestrogen, turning it on. And so that's the cancer promoting effect that you get from birth control pills, Premarin, xenoestrogens, and it's very harmful. We know without it, we've known for decades that estrogen, these estrogen drugs, birth control pills, increase the rate of breast cancer. Not only that, they increase strokes, blood clots. I don't know who wants to volunteer for a stroke or a blood clot, but we need to be aware of the side effects. Not the side effects, they're actually direct effects of these drugs. You know, smoking is probably not a direct effect on cancer. Smoking does cause an increased rate of breast cancer. And let's, we've got to be transparent and honest here. I honestly don't think that it's the tobacco near as much of a problem as it is what we do to the tobacco. So many times it's what we do. I'm not sure that beef is so bad, but standing a cow in a beef lot and giving it GMO corn and steroids and growth hormone and antibiotics, and then we eat that, that's bad for us. So I don't know that it's this, but it's probably what we do to that. Smoking, they put licorice, they put sugar, they put all kinds of stuff on the tobacco that when it burns, chars, and that char from those substances is very toxic. And so it's probably not so much the tobacco. I've gone all over the world and studied centenarians. And I'll be honest with you, these are people over 100 years old. Most of them have a hand-rolled cigarette in the evening and a shot of the local juice. And I'm going like, okay, maybe these have some health benefits. It's what we do to the cigarettes, the licorice, the sugar, the different things that char that are carcinogenic, so much more than the tobacco. Tobacco needs to be loose where it can burn readily. I guess some of the cigarette companies are actually coming back out with loosely packed tobacco so that it burns better, gets more oxygen to it, and burns more thoroughly. So it decreases oxygen rates, number one. Any tissue that has less oxygen is going to have more cancer. And then you get these toxic chemicals coming into the lungs, landing right there, and the lungs are just 2 cell layers thick. It goes right through, gets to the breast, so you've got decreased blood flow. But the exact direct effect, we know that it causes an increased rate of breast cancer. How exactly that happens, we don't want to know. We know that smoking decreases oxygen level. That's not healthy for any tissue. Probably diminishes lymphatic drainage a little bit. So that would be my answer to the cigarette issue. Alcohol is a toxin, and anytime you're creating a toxin, the liver has to clear that. And exactly how alcohol directly affects the estrogen receptors or the breast tissue, I don't know that we know. We just know it's a toxic substance, and as it's broken down, it continues to be toxic. And so there is a link between breast cancer and alcohol. Even 1 glass a day, you have a slight uptick in breast cancer rate. You go to 2 a day and you have a significant uptick. And then you start, and I'm talking about wine, you start talking about hard liquor, and you've really got some serious upticks. The more you drink, the more likely you are to get breast cancer. So there is a direct link between alcohol consumption and breast cancer. So stick with a half glass. And red wine preferably with resveratrol. Resveratrol has some amazing, beautiful benefits. Well, we know that obese people or overweight, even modestly overweight people, have more breast cancer. Probably the reason, there's several reasons there, but number one, adipose tissue, fat, makes estrogen. And remember, estrogen, excess estrogen, is a cause of breast cancer. So 1% of breast cancers are men, and they're most always obese, and they have breast. Because of the excess estrogen production from the fat. So fat produces estrogen, which leads to breast cancer. So there's a direct link there just because adipose tissue makes breast cancer. There's probably another factor there, and it's not as well correlated, but if you're overweight, you probably aren't exercising significantly. We know that exercise dramatically lowers cancer rates of all ilk. And so twofold factor there. Adipose tissue makes estrogen, and you probably aren't exercising if you're obese. So two ticks up the breast cancer scale there. Tap water is not healthy for you. First of all, it's got chlorine in it, which is a known carcinogen, a known cancer-causing agent. I was at the Water Treatment Specialists of America, I think was the name of it, convention here a few years ago, and they actually said from the stage, we know that chlorine causes cancer. We know that chlorine causes disease. We just don't have anything better to treat the water with right now. So their main concern is today, the people that drink the water not getting dysentery or not getting cholera or not getting whatever. There's a breakage in the pipe out there, you get dirt in it, you get bacteria, fungus, they put the pipe back together. There's still chlorine in the water to kill all of that. You could sterilize water with ozone just as effectively, maybe more. But the ozone is a gas, and it would, as the pipe went out to service the houses or the buildings, the gas would separate. And so if you had a breakage out there or a contamination, it wouldn't still be in the water to sterilize it. So that would be a much preferable way to do it, except for that issue. So if you're drinking tap water, stop it. You need a local, in your house, device to take the chlorine out, to take the fluoride out, and to take the chemicals and pharmaceuticals. Your water is heavily contaminated, in all probability, if you live in any metro area in the United States, heavily contaminated with pharmaceuticals and chemicals. Chemicals from manufacturing, chemicals from runoff from farms and agriculture, and then pharmaceuticals. I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee for a while. Well, right up the Tennessee River in Knoxville, everybody flushed their toilets, and all of that goes to the water treatment plant, which then dumps it into the Tennessee River. Then Chattanooga, next city down, takes their water right out of the Tennessee River with all of those chemicals in it, with all those what do you do with your bottle of pills when you're done, when you aren't taking them all? You dump them down the commode. And they go right into the water. So public water is a cesspool of chemicals and drugs. And you don't need to be you need some Prozac today? Have a glass of tap water. Need an antibiotic today? Have a glass of tap water. So you've got to clean that stuff out of there. That is not good for you. So get you a device that removes, and ask those specific questions. Does it remove chloride? What percent? Does it remove fluoride? What percent? Toxic, deadly chemicals. Does it remove pesticides and chemicals? And so you want a clean, healthy water device in your home that prepares water, fresh water today. And fill up your jug and take it to work. Oh, bras are interesting. There's a huge industry, needless to say, around that, and it's highly sold to women. There was a study in the early 90s, I think Grissmeyer and Singer published that work. I think they published it actually in book form called Dressed to Kill. And they actually received threats and death threats after they published that from, who knows, the lingerie industry or who knows, I don't know. But here's how that works. So anything that hangs out of the body is made to be cooler. And if you heat that up, it has more disease. So let's switch it from women to men for a second. So if a man has a testicle that stays in the abdomen, instead of descending down into the scrotum, which is about 4 degrees cooler, so inside of the body, 98.6, outside of the body, about 94, 95 degrees. If that testicle doesn't come down and stays in the abdomen, it's got over an 80% chance of becoming cancerous. So it's made to be cool, it's staying hot, and so you take the breasts now. They're made to be cool, they're hanging outside of the body, probably 3 or 4 degrees cooler, and now we put these thermal insulation packs on them. We call them bras. They're cloth, they're insulation, a lot of times a lot of padding or foam or push-up or whatever. And so we're insulating them, we're keeping the heat in them. That's going to increase the disease rate of those breasts. Number 2, it's creating pressure against the breast. Well, what does that do? That decreases blood flow. Well, that's decreasing oxygen, decreasing vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, amino acids, all of the nutrients that cell needs to be healthy. You've just decreased the flow because you're putting pressure on that tissue. So it can't be as healthy because it's not getting good blood flow. And then thirdly, the pressure creates lymphatic congestion. And lymph is the garbage collection system of the body. And so the lymph system is removing the garbage. Cells don't have a little disposal chute where they dispose of their garbage. You've got the cell wall, and they're doing their thing on the inside of the cell, and then they just throw the garbage right outside of the cell wall, just right out the door. And then the lymph system carries that away from the cells. And if you're congesting the lymph and keeping the garbage there, the toxins, that's not a healthy environment for those cells to live in. So there's a couple of things to do. Wear bras less, absolutely less than 8 hours a day. Not at all. If you've got an A cup or a B cup, you don't need to be wearing a bra. You say, oh, my nipples will show. Well, there's 7 billion women in the world, 3.5 billion women in the world, which means there's 7 billion female nipples. Yes, every woman has 2 of them by and large. And what's the problem? I guess they make little stickies that you can just put over the nipples to not make them show. Or you can wear a camisole or a little jacket. There are plenty of ways not to let your nipples show because somehow that's socially inappropriate. I don't comprehend that, but anyway. I know it's a woman thing and you got to respect that. But there are other ways besides a bra not to let your nipples show. And so do that. When you get home, rip that bra off, and then do a cute little thing. When I'm speaking to women's groups, I teach them a little mantra, and that is every time they go to the bathroom, I say, panties down, hands up. Every time they pull their panties down to go to the bathroom, their hands need to go up to their breast, and just massage. While they're urinating, just go in circles, whole breast, and you're doing a little lymphatic massage, creating blood flow. Yeah, okay, it's just 10 or 15 seconds, fine. You do that 10 or 15 times a day, you've done something. So every time you sit on the pot, create a new habit, your hands go to your breast and massage. Very healthy for the breast, and so we can mitigate some of that damage. But when you get home in the evening, take that bra off, do a good little lymph massage on your breast, and get on with the day. The other thing that bras do is they decrease the bounce. And breasts are supposed to move when we move. That's healthy. It's called lymphatic pump. That helps move the lymphatics, the garbage away from. So bras simply aren't healthy for the female breast. Again, let's go to lymphatic system, because the lateral part of the breast, the lymphatics drain through the armpit. So if you congest the lymphatics in the armpit, you're congesting the lymph and backing it up into the breast. And perspiration is a primary way to get rid of toxins. And remember, toxins are in the lymph. So you're damming up part of your detoxification system. You're made to sweat, you're made to perspire. It's a way to get rid of toxins. It's a way to especially get rid of some of those high toxins coming out of the breast there in a more immediate fashion than circulating them through the blood and processing them in the liver or the kidneys later. So the antiperspirants are not healthy for us. We need to perspire. And so don't know what that looks like. On a practical basis, I guess there are pads that you can wear under. I honestly never had that problem. When I was a youth and exercising and playing team balls, everybody come in and at the end of the day and wring their shirts out, and if it's a really hot, damp day, I might have a little wet spot someplace on my shirt. But I understand it can be a social problem, but deal with it some other way if possible. Well, microwave, let's talk about EMF, electromagnetic frequency, in all of its forms, microwave being a very powerful, damaging form of electromagnetic frequency. But do not hesitate for a second. Cell phones are EMF too. I was in one of these hardware places the other day, and this woman walked by me, and she tucked her cell phone in her bra, and I just went. And I looked at her, and she caught out of the side of her eye, and she looked, and she went, "What?" And I said, "Your bra is not a cell phone holder." And she went, "Oh, you're right." And I couldn't believe I said that to her. But I was grateful that she didn't slap me and that she responded appropriately. She took that out. Bras are not cell phone holders. You do not want to be putting that electromagnetic frequency next to your brain or your breast or any place else on your body, actually. So I virtually never put that thing up to my head. I've had too many friends with brain cancer that were heavy cell phone users. So you don't want that electromagnetic radiation, for it causes heat. And remember, we talked about heat. Anything that you heat up, whether it's a testicle or breast, it becomes more cancer. So this is not the same as X-rays, which cause DNA damage that leads to cancer. This is a heating phenomena. And it does cause protein damage also, so that can lead to all kinds of cellular disruption. There's a lot of things that microwaves do. It heats, it causes protein damage, causes those proteins to misfold a lot of times. So it's not healthy for us. I don't have a microwave in my house, haven't for 25 or 30 years. You don't even heat the water for the coffee in it because it restructures the water into not healthy water. So microwaves are not good for us. Well, we know that pesticides, herbicides, that these types of chemicals, especially glyphosate, are known carcinogens. They cause cancer. That's been proven over and over. And then they do the GMO thing. They literally put a pesticide into a vegetable. They splice that gene in. So GMO is genetically modified organism. They take a gene that will kill a bug or a bacteria or fungus, and they put it into the genetic structure of the plant, so that then when the bug eats that plant, it dies. Well, hello, we're big bugs. We have the same biological systems, so we're getting poisoned too. We're a bigger bug, so it usually doesn't kill us, but it sure does make us sick and unhealthy and damages us. Our livers are trying to detoxify that. Our kidneys are trying to detoxify that. It's damaging our neural system, our immune system. So there's this whole GMO pesticide, chemical, artificial fertilizer thing going on that is devastating. It's staying in the soil, it's getting in the food products. It's so hard to get away with, and it's all about money. It's about, this is something sinister out of like one of these dark movies, like a Batman movie or something, where they're trying to come in and put something in the water supply of the city to take it over. These companies are trying to rule the world with these drugs and chemicals that they put on plants that actually in the long run don't increase productivity, that are deadly, not only to the organisms out there, but to us. Plant a little extra. Plant some for the worms and the bugs too. We need the whole biome, and it's affecting us in a dramatic way, causing cancer, causing disease. It is not healthy for us. Heavy metals dumb down the immune system. So mercury, cadmium, lead, arsenic, these chemicals have been known for centuries to cause damage. Lead was probably a primary cause for the fall of the Roman Empire because they drank out of lead goblets. It was an easy metal to work with, soft, so they could shape it. They didn't know that lead caused genetic damage and brain damage and liver damage, kidney damage. Well-meaning dentists have been putting mercury, one of the most toxic substances on the planet, in our mouth for decades. And you know, it's a biohazard waste and a very toxic chemical when they mine it. It's very toxic when they process it. It's toxic when they transport it. It's toxic when the dentist is making up. And then when we put it in our mouth, all of a sudden, magically, it's non-toxic. And then when they go to take it out, it's toxic again, and it has to be disposed of toxically. What? It's insanity. Of course it's toxic in your mouth. And the mercury vapors are gassing off. We're breathing those, and so the ADA will never admit that they poisoned generations with mercury. They will just slowly move away with it to ceramics and plastics and other things, which may be just as toxic because I'm not sure how many studies are being done on those. But at least we're moving away from the mercury toxicity. So heavy metals dumb the immune system down. I consider every cancer patient to have heavy metal poisoning. And so I treat them with either EDTA, DMPS, or DMSA, activated charcoal, chlorella. There are ways to get the heavy metals. It's a process because they're so toxic that your body, your immune system has stuffed them in the closet and locked the key on the door. But then occasionally that cell dies and that stuff is floating around again. So it's a process of detoxing slowly over the years, literally. And then we're getting more metals all the time. We get it in fish because we've been polluting our oceans with mercury. You get it in your water because that water comes through a metal pipe. You're breathing metal in the air because coal-fired plants are releasing arsenic and lead and mercury into the air. You're breathing heavy metals. And we've gotten those smokestacks under control a little bit in America, but right across the ocean there in China, there are no controls on those smokestacks. So that's in the air. You're literally breathing heavy metals in the air, drinking it in the water as it comes through the metal pipes. You eat food that was stored in a metal can, cooked in a metal pot. You're eating it off of a metal device. And so, unless you're Chinese, eating with chopsticks out of a wooden bowl. So heavy metals are with us. They're not going to go away. So you need to be proactive. I take every week an EDTA suppository just to get the excess metals out of my body because I've had mercury fillings, I eat fish. So detoxification of heavy metals needs to be, we all need to be doing that on an ongoing basis. So antibiotics, how do they affect breast cancer? Well, literally there are what we call biomes in our body. So we are outnumbered. We are actually a parasite. We are a parasite on our bacteria. There's maybe 100 trillion of them and maybe 10 trillion of us. I hear different numbers, but essentially there's about 10 of them for every one of us. And so there's, think of 100 trillion bacteria. We eat the food, they literally process the food, and then they make products. And then those products go into our bloodstream and we use them. So we want to have the right bacteria making the right things for our health. You take antibiotics and it kills off the good bacteria, allowing yeast to flourish. Ask any woman about that that's had an antibiotic, the yeast flourishes. They'll get vaginal yeast or another yeast problem. So you're killing off the good bacteria, allowing bad bacteria and yeast to flourish. And then you're not getting the healthy foods, the good products from the foods that you need to be. So, and then we have microbiomes. There's actually a microbiome in the nipples of the breast. So let's think about the structure of the breast. There are milk ducts that lead to the nipple from the glands. So the breast is a big gland and there's little pockets of glands and then those lead into ducts that lead into the nipple. So that when the gland produces milk, the baby can get the milk out of the nipple. So all those ducts, all roads lead to Rome. All of those ducts lead to the nipple. In those ducts are bacteria, healthy bacteria, right up until the point that we take an antibiotic. And just like it damages the microbiome in the gut, it damages the biome in the breast. We know that women that have 4 courses of antibiotics before their 18th birthday have a 3-fold increase in breast cancer from taking a few antibiotics. So antibiotics are devastating for our bodies in its entirety, and especially for the breast. So if you must take an antibiotic, which you should only take for a life-threatening condition, then you want to take good probiotics. You want to get a nice mix of bacteria back in the bowel and support it as soon as possible. Now, the way you support your microbiome is with your fertilizer. And your fertilizer is your food. So just think about it. Where do cactuses grow? Well, they grow in the desert where there's no rain. The soil is terrible, constant sunlight. Where do live oak trees grow? Well, they grow where there's 50% shade half the time, 60 inches of rainfall a year, and lots of healthy soil. So different plants grow and thrive in different conditions. So you want to create the conditions in your bowel to grow healthy bacteria, and that's called vegetables. And the second thing is vegetables. And the third thing is vegetables. And then nuts, and then low sugar fruits, low glycemic index fruits. And if you must, a little bit of white meat or wild caught fish. in moderation, because you're creating the culture medium in which you want your healthy bacteria to grow. And so put the proper fertilizer down there. They're calling that prebiotics now. And they'll sell that to you in a can, but your prebiotics should be the food that you eat. That's the fertilizer for these 100 trillion bacteria that you've got in you to grow on. It's your food. Two connections between watching television and breast cancer. The first is cellular memory. What we allow into our eyes stays in our bodies. There is a video of your whole life living, existing in you. Let me pull one up out of my memory. Terminator. I probably saw that 25 years ago. I can still see the T1 coming through, you know, and shooting everything, and I can still see those scenes vividly. Running down, the girl and the guy in the truck with the nitrous oxide in the back and blowing up and then getting crushed in the plant. I haven't thought of that in decades. Where has that knowledge been? It's been right here in my body. And I pulled it up just like that. That cellular memory is stored in my body. Now, just how many rape scenes do you want stored in your body? How many murders do you want stored in your body? How much yeah stuff and vicious stuff do you want stored in your body? Because it's not stored in isolation in this little lead box. It's playing. Memory is signal. It's electronic signal, and it's playing in the background. So just how much of that bad signal do you want playing in the background of your life, affecting your life? So be very careful what you allow into your eyes, because it's literally affecting you and how you play on a day-to-day basis and affecting your health. So that's more than you ever thought about television affecting your life and health. Secondly, if you're sitting on the couch, you're probably not moving. You're probably not exercising. And exercise decreases every type of cancer, and if you've got it, it prolongs your life. That includes breast cancer. So if you're exercising, you're less likely to get breast cancer. If you have it, you're likely to live longer. Because again, there's the bounce, there's burning calories, lowering blood sugars. So exercise does everything healthy for us. And I can make that point with every person I know except my mother, who is 93, and she says, exercise will just wear your heart out. So I can't, and what can I say? She's 93. The rest of us should be exercising. Let's tackle the toughest one first. I'm not going to say the number one. A huge cause of cancer is a spiritual issue. And that would be the word unforgiveness. I was in India here not too long ago, and I was speaking to a group of Hindi. And the point that I usually use to illustrate this is the Lord's Prayer that Jesus said. His disciples asked him, how should we pray? And so then that's called the Lord's Prayer. And I'm kind of scratching my head going, okay, what metaphor, what do I use to communicate this message to Hindi? But I just thought I'd ask, has anyone ever heard or said the Lord's Prayer? To my surprise, every hand in the audience went up. I went, okay, so we can talk about this. So Jesus' disciples are asking him, how do we pray? And he's saying, God's kingdom coming and his will being done on earth, and give us our daily provision and all these things. And right in the middle of that, he says a little phrase, and it's, forgive us our trespasses, just as, two words, just as we forgive those who trespass against us. What did you just ask God to do? You asked God not to forgive you if you haven't forgiven other people. Forgive me just as, to the same degree that I've forgiven other people. So if you are in unforgiveness toward other people, then you're in unforgiveness to God. God, He said, in case you missed it, out of all of the Lord's Prayer, it's the only one that Jesus goes back and covers after the prayer. And He says, if you do not forgive your brother here on earth, your Heavenly Father will not forgive you. So arguably, forgiveness is the most important word in any language. And I say arguably because love may be the most important word, but they may be two sides of the same coin. If you're in love, you're probably in forgiveness. So I think of unforgiveness as like having a brick tied around your ankle and you're trying to swim, and it's just going to pull you under. Cut the rope. Live. Unforgiveness ties you. It binds you to that person. Really? How close to them do you really want to be? Cut the rope. Forgiveness isn't for them. Forgiveness is for you. It releases you. Cut the rope. Make a list. Get out a piece of paper. Make a list of everyone that's ever hurt you, wounded you, slighted you, damaged you, done whatever to you. Make your unforgiveness list and take a couple of days and ask divine wisdom to help fill that list out, because sometimes it gets pretty long. And then very specifically go through each one of those and tell that person that you forgive them, unconditionally, that you forgive them 100%. And then do something ritualistic like burn that thing. Do it safely in the sink or something, but burn it. So forgiveness is a huge spiritual issue. You've got to be in forgiveness. You've got to forgive. Go watch Frozen. Let it go. Let it go. Go watch that little movie. Great little movie about letting it go. So you've got to let those things go. Emotions that are very unhealthy, that may be a cause of cancer. Right? Let's go for the big ones. Anger and fear. Anger tends to be more of a masculine issue, although women can certainly get angry. And fear tends to be more of a feminine issue, although certainly men can be fearful also. But any spirit wandering by knows where to attack a man, anger, or knows where to attack a woman, fear. But again, we can be in touch with each other's emotions. I'm in touch with my feminine side occasionally. So if fear is a serious part of your life, work on that. Recognize that that's not healthy. That zings your immune system. Remember that fight or flight thing? Every time you get that fear thing, your body goes into fight or flight, shuts the immune system down. Same thing with anger. If you're in anger, that means you're ready to fight. Dumbs down the thinking part of your brain. Yeah, that's why you get in a fight in the first place. Dumbs down the immune system. So anger and fear are not healthy emotions. Not personally, not for society, not physiologically, not for your immune system. So that's how those play in. Formaldehyde is a byproduct of a lot of toxins and chemicals. Probably our greatest source of formaldehyde today would be aspartame. In our artificial sweeteners. We know that they convert to formic acid and formaldehyde, I think around 90 degrees. I don't remember the exact science on that. So when you drink these artificial sweeteners, they're actually producing formaldehyde in your body. Formaldehyde is what we use to preserve like cadavers. When I was going through medical school and we were working on our cadavers, we were all sick for 6 months because we were smelling and in this toxic soup of formaldehyde. It is a very nasty substance. It preserves, it kills, extremely toxic. So probably our primary source of that today that's readily available to the public is in artificially sweetened drinks. Triclosan was initially invented for surgical scrub because it's so deadly to bacteria, but it's made its way into a broad market of sanitization products, and it has a distinct smell. I smelled it literally in the airport bathroom and the soaps in there yesterday. It is highly antibacterial. Unfortunately, it is also highly toxic. It's toxic to the liver. It damages. Again, it's very effective at killing bacteria, so that gets into our blood. The skin is a great way to get things into the body. So whether you're putting a chemical on your hands or women putting stuff on their face, it goes right through. I mean, think about this. You're having chest pain, and you can take a strip of nitro, put a nitro patch on, and in 15 seconds, your heart pain starts going away. I mean, that's rapid transport right through the skin. So your skin is an organ of absorption. The skin is our largest organ. It's bigger than any other organ. And it is an organ. It's an organ of excretion. It puts things out of the body, but it's an organ of absorption. So when you're taking that shower in that toxic chlorine fluoride shower, you're absorbing that stuff. So get you a shower filter that filters that stuff out, or better yet, a whole house system that gets rid of that stuff, so that you can be showering it because your skin is absorbing all this stuff. So it is a known carcinogen. It is a serious antibacterial, and bacteria are our friends. Yeah, we don't want somebody else's cold. Wash your hands, soap, water, a little detergent, but we don't need those chemicals which are not proven safe for human beings on us or in us. Well, there's a direct correlation between how many cleaning products a woman uses and her cancer rate. And it's not specific to breast. All cancer rates. The more women who clean homes have more cancer rate than women that don't do it professionally. And then stay-at-home moms, the more they clean with these products. So we absolutely need to move to green products. Cleaning agents with cedar oil and with other essential oils, jojoba oil, that are very effective at cleaning, that are not toxins, that don't damage our livers, increase our our cancer rates, that aren't toxic. So we need to be very careful about moving away from toxic cleaning agents to non-toxic cleaning agents. Usually a little soap and water will clean most everything. It doesn't have to be this super powerful, and we don't want to kill all these germs. Germs are our friends. Wipe the counter down, make it clean so that there's not some food there to grow bacteria, but you don't need to sterilize the countertop. You don't need to napalm the countertop or irradiate it or totally wipe it out. Bacteria are our friends. Fasting is a lost art in America because we are addicted to food. Food is our God. One of our gods, television, food, sports. We have many gods in this land of many gods. And food is one of our gods. Fasting has been done worldwide by all populations up until the current for as long as life has been known. Sometimes you had to fast because you didn't get any food that day, but as a health practice and as a spiritual practice, most of the world population still practices fasting today. except in America. Maybe a few Catholics at Lent, or maybe a few Muslims around Ramadan, maybe a few groups here and there. But fasting is a lost art, but it's extremely healthy. There's a concept called immune senescence, which needs to happen. Let me try to convey that. It's a little bit tough to grasp. So from the time we were born, let's say we have 1,000 total immune cells that can identify something, and that's all that we can ever have that can identify a new bacteria, virus, fungus, or cancer cell. Now, once a white blood cell, an immune system, identifies a fungus, virus, cancer cell, bacteria, it identifies a shape. And so the rest of its life, it goes around looking for that shape. And that's all that that white blood cell can respond to, is that bacteria or that virus or that cancer cell. It is now programmed. And it can't identify a new one. And so if you've got 900 out of the 1,000 cells that are available to survey in your immune system already pre-programmed, then you don't have many left that can identify new things, new cancers, new bacteria, new fungus. So we actually need those old cells where I stumped my toe on the boardwalk in Tybee Beach when I was 5 years old and got some bacteria in there, or fungus. I'm probably never going to see that fungus again in my life, so I probably don't need those cells hanging around for the last 60 years looking for that fungus or that bacteria. So we actually need those cells to go away so that our stem cells, our immune stem cells, can create new, fresh, that can identify new structures, cancers, bacteria, fungi, viruses. And so we need for our immune system to senesce somewhat. Fasting is the thing that does that. And no, I'm not talking about a juice fast. I'm talking about a water fast. And yes, you can do this. Everybody on the planet does this except in America where we're addicted to food. Yes, if you're diabetic, you can fast. Water only fast for at least 48 hours, preferably 72 hours. So water fast only. I recommend doing it like a Jewish day, which is evening, morning, lunch. And so you start fasting after lunch, 1 or 2 o'clock on day one. So you're fasting dinner, breakfast, and lunch. And then if you're doing a 2-day fast, dinner, breakfast, lunch, and then you eat on the second day. So you're only really gone to bed hungry one night. and it's very doable. You get your mind wrapped around it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it successfully. You drink plenty of water those 2 days because you want to help detoxify. Water's a great detoxificant. So it allows your bowel to rest and give it a break. It allows your body your liver to detoxify all these things that have been building up. It allows the immune system to senesce, get rid of a lot of those old white blood cells that it just doesn't need anymore, allow fresh, new, active white blood cells to come along that can pick up new things. Helps stabilize blood sugar, helps burn a little fat. Fasting is so freaking healthy. There are few things healthier than fasting. It's a must do. It's part of life extension. I'm really into extending lives. And that's a lot of my practice is life extension. With the implements that I have in my tool belt today, I can get you about 10 extra years of healthy quality life. And one of those is fasting for at least 48 hours every month. So I just set it up. If you don't have it on a planned day, you never get to it. So the first and second day of every month, I fast for 48 hours. Don't care if there's parties, don't care if there's a Super Bowl, don't care what's going on. Day 1 and day 2 of every month, I fast. That way it's a set time. I know it's coming. I get ready for it mentally, physically, water only for 48 hours. And there are actually some herbals that will help immune senescence. Quercetin, like 4 grams, a couple of times a day during those fasts, will really help that immune senescence process to occur in a healthy manner. So fasting is healthy in so many ways. Gives your bowel a rest, helps your budget. There just went to, that's 6% of the food budget for the month. You just made some money. Healthy mentally, healthy emotionally. It helps us discipline ourselves. Self-discipline's a good thing. So many ways fasting is healthy for us. Thermograms are infrared pictures. So you have a thermogram camera, an infrared camera, that takes a picture of the heat coming off the body. So there's a camera out there and it's taking a picture. And nothing touches the person. There's no squeezing, there's no smashing, there's no physical damage, there's no cancer-causing x-rays. Just a camera taking a picture. And it is a great way to survey, you can survey the whole body with an infrared camera. You can see headaches, you can see dental infections, sinus infections, you can see thyroid issues, thymus issues, breast issues, some bowel issues, neuropathies, inflamed joints. So it shows a whole lot of things. But it's particularly useful for imaging women's breast because we want to move away from mammograms that cause breast cancer. And so what do? Well, thermograms is one of those things that we can do because it's more sensitive than a mammogram, and it doesn't cause cancer because nothing touches you. There's no x-rays. What it's looking for, in particular with the breast, are areas of heat or certain patterns. So if there are cancer cells growing in the breast, it's recruiting blood flow, and more blood flow to the area is called heat. And then not all cancer cells live. Some of those die, and as they do, cancer cells are very toxic. And so they release toxins in that local area, and that dilates the skin above, allowing heat to emit through the skin. So this thermogram can pick up this heat occurring in the breast and show you that on a camera. Now, buyer beware. The camera is very important. You want a modern, up-to-date camera like a FLIR camera. You don't want one of these old rotating disc cameras that use a mirror. That's ancient technology, about 30 years old. So you want a good camera with a modern sensor in it. You want a program that can interpret that. So it's got to be able to measure the nipple temperatures. So buyer beware and ask before you go, can you specifically measure the nipple temperatures and give me each nipple temperature? Why is that important? Well, let's think about it. Ductal carcinoma in situ, the ducts, where do they all come out? The nipples. So if there's ductal carcinoma happening in there, then that heat is going to be reflected onto the nipples. So you want a program that you can check the temperature of the nipple and then check the global temperature of the breast and compare those two. So what thermography is looking at is the measurement of one breast against the other, one nipple against the other, one whole breast against the other, and you're comparing the two. And the only time that thermography really misses breast cancer is when you've got it in both breasts and they're both hot. And no test is 100%. Thermograms are not 100%. They're up between 80 and 90% sensitivity. They're still going to miss. Mammograms on women below 50 are only 52%. That means they're going to miss half of all the cancers there. Ultrasounds are going to miss 10, 15%. MRIs are going to miss 10 or 20%. So there is no 100% test. So someone will say, oh, the thermogram missed my breast cancer. Well, yeah. Mammograms miss half of them. MRIs miss X%. Ultrasound, so there is no 100% test. Biopsies are not 100%. They can miss the cancer. So there is no 100% test. So you just got to get over that. So that's why we use test in tandem. So if you're getting a thermogram, you should also get a test of anatomy. I would say not personally not to do the mammogram. That's the standard of care. That's what your physician is going to recommend. So I just have to say that's the standard of care. I personally would recommend the ultrasound or MRI because thermography is a test of physiology. It's not looking at anatomy at all. It's looking at the physiology, what's happening in the breast, instead of structures. And then you want a structural test to go with it. Ultrasound, MRI, or heaven forbid, a mammogram. And so it's an infrared picture, and you should get those sequentially like they want you to do on the mammograms. You should get these sequentially so that you're looking at the temperature 1 year and the next year and the next year, so that you can see the truck coming down the road so you can get out of the road. If this breast is getting a little bit hotter each year, then you can see that that's beginning to be a problem, and you can take appropriate action. So thermograms are phenomenal for early detection of breast cancer. It's truly the only form of early detection of breast cancer, because mammograms or ultrasound or MRIs, you have to have this tumor there to see it. Well, a half centimeter, which is about 3/16 of an inch, has about 300 million cancer cells in it. That's not early detection. But probably down around 500,000 cancer cells begins to produce heat, and you may well be able to see that on the infrared camera. So thermography is truly the only early detection of breast cancer. I am here at The Real Truth About Health because you're about the same thing that I am, and that is about educating the public, getting knowledge out there to the public so that they can make intelligent decisions, empowering the public with knowledge, because they're not going to get that from Big Pharma. They're not going to get that on television. You will find inculcated, even in programs, pro-drug and pro-messages, because the pharmaceutical industry has these big ads for millions of dollars, and they help control the content of the programs. So they're literally controlling the programming of our minds and what we believe about health care. And many people are recognizing that there's a lot of ill health and damage coming from the current system, and they're wanting knowledge. They're wanting to be empowered to try to escape the system, or to try to improve their health, to try to find out how to do it better, right. And so I have nothing but kudos for The Truth About Health, because they are trying to empower people with life-changing information so that they can be in health and gain health and understand what to do to have better health. So kudos, you guys are doing an awesome job. Keep up the good work.